When we go through this life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, do you think that you will say, I'm a believer? Do you think that you will say, I have iman, and that I will not test you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have tested people before you, and they were given such a severe test that they were shaken. And some of the people that had diseases in their hearts, and the hypocrites, they said, what does Allah mean by all of this? They started to lose faith. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they were shaken with this kind of tests. Do you think that you will say, I believe, and that you will not be tested? And so, part of this dunya, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one time he was sitting with the Sahaba, and he was going to teach them something. And so he started drawing on the ground. You know, he used to use illustrations, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He drew for them a box. And he drew a circle inside the box. And he drew lines coming down from the top. And if you can imagine, he said, this circle is you. And he drew a line that comes out of the circle even to the outside of the box. He said, this is your desires. He said, that which is coming down from the top is difficulties, calamities. And he said, this square box around it is the iron grips of death. He said, these difficulties will keep coming on you. And if you avoid one, another one will get you. And if you avoid that, another will get you. Until you come into the iron grips of death. And he said, this line that's coming out is your desires. And so he drew this diagram for us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to show us that this dunya is like this. That just as soon as you thought you were done with your problems, there's something else that comes up. And the nature of dunya, one of the people said, is just one thing after another. It's just one thing after another. And you know, this is part of dunya. And on the surface, it sounds very depressing. You know, you look at it, you say, so this is what we're here for, to just go through suffering and difficulties? I mean, look at the baby, you know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He calls the womb of the mother. He gives it the word Rahm, from which He derives two of His names, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. And the reason for this, the scholar said, is when you're in the womb, you have no worries, you have no problems. Why? The mother is there, you're inside the womb, the food is provided for you, the rent is paid off, everything is taken care of. You know, the child is just enjoying himself. And the temperature has been regulated, there is no AC, nothing is needed. Everything is taken care of. This is the mercy. But then the child comes into this dunya, and the first thing he does is he has to cry. First thing. And suddenly there's light, and this has to go through this, and people are picking him up and turning him and this and that. And it's the difficulties start when the child is born. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we created human beings in turmoil. And so the difficulties start from that moment. And it will continue until death comes. And this is the nature of this dunya. But when we look at this, we say, subhanAllah, this is too depressing. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Ajaba amrul mu'min. It's amazing for a believer. Everything that happens to him is good for him. Everything that happens to him is good for him. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when Allah puts a difficulty on him, he's patient, and that's good for him. And when he's in prosperity, he's grateful, and that's good for him. Everything that happens to him is good for him. Like this, you know, one of my teachers, he made a joke. He said, you know, like they say, it's all good in the hood. He said, it's all good if you're a believer. If you're a non-believer, it's all bad, even if it's good. And so, we have to keep this in mind, that this dunya is very temporary. That we're going through this dunya, the nature of this dunya is these difficulties.